What's up, guys? George Balekji here with Boston has entered the chat. But hey, check out the latest episode of Foxborough Rush. Travis Thomas and myself, we go through everyone that got tagged during the franchise tag period and what that means for the Patriots. Trey Smith, now franchise tagged, and what that means for everything evolving. And then we go through some reports about the hierarchy. Who is number one? Who's number two? Who's number three in the Patriots leading that organization? All that and more on Foxborough Rush, wherever you get your podcast. Now, let's get to Boston has entered the chat. What's up, what's up, what's up? Bring it in. Boston has entered the chat. I'm George Balekji. She's Kasey Hudson. We got a packed show for you guys today. Case, how we doing, though?
We're good. We're so good. March is wildly here.
Yeah.
And it feels like we're already counting down to week 2. Your girl's getting 1 year older. Family's coming into town, so they're going to get to see Boston.
I'm not going to guess an age. I'm not that dumb.
That's fine. That's fine. I'm not that lady. 33.
Oh, all right. Would not have guessed 33.
Exactly.
I was thinking 28, 29.
See, you're so good at this. Your fiance should be proud of you.
I was thinking 45. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. Well,
at least you asked the right questions.
Happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
And, I mean, birthday celebrations. Hockey's exciting.
Right.
I was going to wait how to word this. So we got updates from the Bruins. Brad Marchand week to week. Never want to see that for the captain. But the Bees are selling. We'll talk about the latest as they dealt Trent Frederic to the Oilers, what that means for Edmonton, the NHL, and the Bruins moving forward. Also, the Patriots could be pursuing wide receivers aggressively. Reports we're hearing who they'd go after. Saquon Barkley getting paid. Yes, a running back getting money. He's changing the narrative. And then, as always, Athan and Jason with the Ringside Review for Monday Night Raw. We got that all in chat. But let's get right into it. So Brad Marchand officially week to week, upper body injury. He suffered that back on March 1st, and then the Bruins announced that he'll be week to week. More importantly, that same day, Trent Frederic traded. So the deal included Trent Frederic to the Edmonton Oilers along with Max Jones. The Bruins in return got defenseman Max Wanner, a 2025 second-round pick, that is the St. Louis Blues, and then a 2026 fourth-round pick from Edmonton. Trent Frederic, good forward, tough, had his best career year last year, kind of fell off and dipped into production. See all the details on your screen. But when you saw this, Trent Frederic to Edmonton, and the Bruins really, the centerpiece of this is a second and a fourth round pick. What was your reaction to this, Kasey?
Well, my reaction, I think, along with a lot of fan reactions, was just like the timing stinks. Yes, he's injured, but if he wasn't injured, you kind of still needed a Trent Frederic on your roster because, Wanner at the time, I think he's coming in and probably heading straight to Providence, young guy under 200 pounds.
Guy, 21 years old.
So you're not looking to bolster the initial roster at the moment. Yeah. Every point counts. Now the playoff window, the wild card window, has just gotten further away because you got the Rangers who have won a pair of games as of late. So it's a little daunting. But as for the player himself, I think you and I talked about this within the last week or so. It is a good fit for Frederic to go there.
Yeah.
You're talking about a strong two-way.
Edmonton is one of the teams you threw out there.
We did. Investigation right here. But yeah, solid two-way forward. I mean, you're talking about a guy who can load up on the hits too. I think I saw his stats sitting at 12.8 hits on 5-on-5 throughout the hour. Bruins are going to miss that. And the stretch coming up here versus Carolina, Tampa Bay, the Panthers, these are games where you need that physical element. But I think that they needed that in order to get the assets. A lot of people are concerned about whether or not we're going to be able to rebuild, and you can only do that when you get draft picks and then development starts going well below. So it is beneficial to the Bruins to make this move because also when you look at losing the totality of a guy who can load up physically on the ice for you, Cole Koepke's been pretty brilliant as of late, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, and what is big too is getting that second round pick back. The Bruins didn't have one this upcoming draft. In the Garnett Hathaway acquisition they made a couple seasons ago. Trent Frederic's a big forward. You bring the toughness. He brings the hits. A guy that was willing to fight. And I feel like that type of role slid away from him. Yeah. And obviously with him having 40 points last season, not on track to even come close to that this season, for a guy that was going to be an unrestricted free agent, a guy it seemed like the Bruins would be hesitant to pay just because of the dip in production. This is the Bruins, the first time in a decade, looking at sellers at the deadline and looking to rebuild for the future because they haven't done it. They've made the postseason. And you mentioned that where the heat of the race is right now for that second wild card spot, they're 2 points out, but it's the Canadians, the Rangers, and the Senators ahead of them.
Right.
And then it goes hand in hand with Brad Marchand being out week to week. So you have another top 6 guy and your captain out. Then you go with your third line wing on that as well, and you're dealing him in Trent Frederic. this is the Bruins saying, like, this is what they're moving forward with. And the quick one on a Max Wanner, 21 years old, 6'3", 185 right shot. He's a prospect. Over 200 games of junior hockey coming from Canada, but that's young, and that's a guy that has 76 points in his career in those 206 games at the AHL level. And then, like, with the second-round pick, there are, serviceable defensemen. That would be prospects. There are serviceable centers. That would be prospects. Like, these young guys. But that's how it goes. And you need to get assets. And very well, they could take a second-round pick and maybe flip it for a pro. There's nothing saying they have to hold on to that draft pick. I just think it's the right move because the Bruins are picking a direction. And I think that was really important for them to do. The trade deadline is Friday at 3 p.m. So as of right now, it's been Trent Frederic. That's been dealt to the Oilers. Brad Marchand out week to week. But they picked a direction being 2 points out, and they just see how the season's going, where it's been so inconsistent, as was a Trent Frederic. It's a tough loss. It's a guy that people in this city absolutely loved because of him being willing to fight, being willing to protect and stand up for his teammates, and a guy that's a really good hockey player. It's just there is a fit at a certain point, and the fit didn't seem to be here anymore.
Yeah, and sometimes that happens when the structure of your roster is changing. I mean, look at how much adversity this Bruins team has had to face between the coaching changeover, the line changes, and then you talk about how they could kind of use and manipulate those draft picks. Well, we know a big need for this team is a strong two-way center, a contributing two-way center that can help add to scoring depth, because scoring depth is the theme that's going to push you along, not only to get into playoffs, to get you through playoffs. Then just taking it back to the development of the prospects, bringing in this defenseman, may I emphasize, a righty shot defenseman. I mean, those guys, exactly, they're so rare. It's so rare to have a right shot defenseman, and then to get him at a developmental stage where you can really get him to be a perfect fit for your system. Like you said, they made a decision. I think the decisiveness helps because now we can at least start gauging a direction and not have this like, what are we doing? Where are we going? What's going to happen here? And it can make way for, potential another move that could help them. It just depends on what their goal is, and we kind of just have to continue to unpack what that cautious means, Bringing in a decent value bottom six guy that can help out and contribute, because some of the guys they had to bring out over the weekend, they helped, but they weren't big ice tilters. So it just depends, and that all cycles back to Brad Marchand. And when he can get it in the lineup, and week to week is very daunting because they don't have week to week. So
I know.
That puts the Bruins in a really bad position not having Brad Marchand right now.
Yeah. And him being week to week, I mean, that's what gives guys the opportunities, though. Like we've seen Georgi Merkulov played 13 minutes the other night against Minnesota in the 2 games since he's been back up with the Bees recently. Maybe you see Fabian Lysell make that next leap because those are their top 2 prospects. Lysell, of course, yes, he's a 2021 first-round pick, and everyone's been waiting and hearing about him. Only 21 years old. Right. Georgi Merkulov, that's a 24-year-old center, 5'11", 185, left shot.
And he has
44 points in 47 games. Exactly. Like, playing significant time. And even with the Max Wanner, like, look at the guys they got in this trade. Reading about the Edmonton Oilers, people that know the farm system, know the prospects, and scout. One scout said he looks like he belongs in the AHL playing against older competition. And they also say his NHL calling card, hard and aggressive shutdown defender with offensive instincts and good hands and stick skills. So that's you're going ceiling now. And that's what the Bruins have to do. They've been hanging on. They've been making the playoffs, but it gets to the point where they have to revamp their entire prospect system. And this is the first step in that direction. And we can see who else is next. Brandon Carlo, Charlie Coyle, Justin Brazeau. It could be any of those guys, even a Morgan Geekie perhaps. But those are the names we can see dealt. And teams that are on the cusp. Now the Bruins are on the other side. Like you're trading away second-round picks to get a Garnet Hathaway, to put you over the top, to make that push in the postseason. Now you're on the other side. You're the seller, where teams that need to get over the top and you have these valuable NHL players, they'll send something back in return.
Right. Like you're making it more attractive in terms of having any sort of negotiation, because they were not in a point of negotiation.
I do like it. They got a prospect back.
Yeah.
And like a 21-year-old, you mentioned a left shot, how important that is. But like a prospect that has, like, when you're reading about him, in the simplicity of it all, where I'm not going to act like I know the Edmonton Oilers farm system, but it just, when you dwindle it down of, there's actually NHL in the conversation. This is what you see him in the NHL. You know? It's not just a guy, he's a good junior hockey player, you
can picture the fit.
Yes, exactly.
You can absolutely picture the fit. And I think it helps too, kind of sticking with the prospect pickups here, because a lot of teams don't like saying reset. It's the no word. You know, you don't say reset, but in a position such as this, you want to know that if you have to hit that button, you've got the prospects, you've got the development, you've got the capability there to actually paint a picture 3 years out and say, oh, we're coming back and we're going to be able to be a formidable team. If you're not willing to kind of start figuring out that development system, and I hate to tie everything back to the Lightning, but Syracuse is one of the top development systems in the nation or in hockey as a whole. So like they always know that they can pull from this pool, and like when they have to do these soft rebuilds or these soft resets, the potential is there, the skill set is there. And I know that there was kind of some question marks around the defenseman category here when it came to development for the Bruins. So this is going to be a beneficial pickup in terms of like you said, negotiations, making them more attractive in conversations, but also if it turns out to be a soft rebuild year, then you're at least bringing in pieces to build off of. Yeah,
exactly. And let's talk about Brad Marchand quick. So out week to week, upper body injury, suffered the injury back on March 1st. And the big question is, what do the Bruins do with Brad Marchand? By Don Sweeney, by all means, is, look, he's going to be a UFA. We're not trading him. Ball's in his court. And even Brad Marchand, when he was speaking a couple of weeks ago on the What Chaos podcast, there's a quote from him. When talked about possibly not just not wearing a bee sweater, he said, I think it would feel I think it would feel very weird. There we go. Probably a little lost, but I don't know. I haven't really thought about it before, and I don't really think about it because it's not something that I really see happening.
Right.
It's tough to see him go down week to week. The timing, as you mentioned, is so difficult with them 2 points out from the Red Wings in that final spot. But that's not someone that's going to get dealt. Sounds like that's someone that doesn't want to leave Boston. The timing could stink, but yeah, Brad Marchand, if he returns next year, this is a team that's in a rebuild. Culture is really important, and Brad Marchand's a guy you need in your dressing room. If that's his like final piece on his legacy of a Bruin, where the 63 will get retired, be raised to the rafters one day. He's been here for other cup runs as well. Meant so much to the Bruins, the community of him just embracing living in Charlestown, everything like that. It would just be part of his legacy. But it sounds like he's a guy that, you know, he really puts importance on playing for the Bruins and being a Bruin for life. Yeah,
and like when you hear statements like that from players, you kind of get this chip of confidence that they're not chasing money. So it's not about particularly like a certain number. It's about the respect of what he's given to the team and that team giving that back to them. Yeah. So that makes the contract negotiations and conversation a little less stressful. More importantly, we're kind of seeing a weird trend these days where talking about getting rid of your captain is becoming a little too easy and loose to the lip. I don't get that vibe from the Bruins. It's not really easy to move on from your captain because then tracks back to what you just said. It changes culture, it changes the nature of the locker room, and depending on who you bring in, you don't know if that voice is going to be loud enough or respected enough to get this team moving along. So moving the captain can be a touch and go situation because it affects so many other things, but I think he still has things to give to this team. Now, being moved to week, if there comes a realization where playoff picture is just too far out, you got that 5% cap increase, you move him off the roster, and you get a little bit of wiggle room for like a temporary solution or situation.
We've seen the Panthers, the Lightning do this
105 times, the Vegas Golden Knights. So just to think that there's a little bit of magic that can take place if they just come to terms with something, place him down, create some space for money, bring in a rental, then they can do that if they want to try to make a push for the playoff picture. But I think he sticks around. It's not easy to move on from your captain. One
final name in all of this. So the Bruins are still retaining 50% of Trent Frederic's salary. Devils taking the other 50%. And in return, the Oilers sent Shane LeChance, sophomore for BU, of course, their captain, over to New Jersey. So I bet he's happy at least staying in the Northeast close to his family. And remember, the NHL Trade Deadline, Friday at 3 p.m. Hey, if you want to stream the entire Sox season with NESN 360 annual plan, it's available at an all-new, reduced price of just $20 a month paid annually and for a limited time. Get 4 free tickets to Fenway with your purchase. Visit NESN360.com to sign up today. All right, so reports coming out. Patriots aggressively are targeting wide receivers. This one from Jordan Schultz of Fox Sports saying the Patriots with the most cap space by far are set to be aggressive, especially at wide receiver. They tried last year but fell short. With Drake May, they should have an easier time attracting talent and are willing to spend whether through free agency or a blockbuster trade. Now, there have been reports that the Patriots kicked the tires on trading for a DK Metcalf, but backed out of it due to the price. I don't see him trading for a Cooper Kupp. There is the, what about A.J. Brown? What about A.J. Brown? Because that's what he's sort of insinuating to this. That conversation would have to start at the number 4 overall pick, where what the Bruins hold. And would you be really willing to part with the number 4 overall for A.J. Brown? I would not. To me, that's Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase territory. But it just opens up. This is what Patriots fans want to hear of all the talk about the trenches. You have to get Drake May his help.
Right.
There's a lot of wide receivers out there on free agency. I'm not going to BS people and say it's a good, deep class. It's an older class. Not as many guys hit free agency like we've seen in the past. Mm-hmm. But the Devontae Adams that has been cut. Stephon Diggs, who's still in his lower 30s. Chris Godwin is just 29, coming off an injury. Darius Slayton, not sexy, but would be a wide receiver 1 and then be a good role piece moving forward. Those are all the guys out there. So we still see the reports. They're being aggressive. You could be aggressive. You could have cap space. You got to be smart how you spend it.
100%. Like, you can't just go out there and start buying pieces. Not to mention, and maybe this is because I'm a hockey nerd, but like, you don't just go snatching names. It's chemistry. Yeah. It's like, do they fit in our system? Will they respond to our coaches? What's the chemistry like? And here's the thing. I was enamored with Mike Vrabel's opening press conferences when he took the position of being a head coach. He said he wanted to be aggressive, but he stressed relationship. He stressed connection. He stressed how often these coaches are going to be interacting with these players to get to know them on a human level. So, yeah, you might have money, but you're not just going to go out there and snatch a name and add it to the roster and use this money in a flashy form. Like, they've got to build something special here, which means they've got to connect the dots. What guys are going to gel? What guys are going to go out on the field and fight for one another? Yeah. But that makes me think that a couple of these free agent names are fantastic and really good fits because there's previous chemistry and timing with McDaniels. There's previous respect and timing with Vrabel, but then also it's the veteran presence. It's bringing in a veteran who either has made a run, a deep run, or knows what it's like to win a championship and helping them be a shoulder as well as a partner for Drake May. Yeah. You can see that he's still very much a sponge, and you can see some sparks of his risk it to get the biscuit mentality, which I love about him. But you can only take risk when you have another voice in your ear that tells you when that risk is calculated and worthy. And having a veteran wide receiver, I think, is going to really uplift his game along with everything else the Patriots are doing.
Yeah, that's what's big, too, is that with everything that they're putting out there, he talked about culture, respecting the team. And that's where you look at lists and you can kind of eliminate some guys off of it. Like,
yes,
Devontae Adams at his age, he's going to want to win. And the reports are he wants to go to the West Coast. You take him off the list. Stephon Diggs, you could see as a fit, but can be a diva. Keenan Allen's up there in age. Chris Godwin's coming off the injury. Amari Cooper, I don't know. Marquise Brown, there's question marks. DeAndre Hopkins is just washed up. And I hate to say he's one of my favorite receivers. There's like the Deontay Johnson. And that's where a lot of people go. Like, well, he's good. It's just he's a headache. Again, when it's Mike Vrabel always says, if you respect the team, that's how I'll treat you. He doesn't talk about himself. Respect the team. That's what he puts most important to him. That's what he prioritizes. It takes away the Deontay Johnson. The top 3 names, you got to trade for them. It's DK Metcalf, it's Cooper Kupp, it's AJ Brown. And I think the Patriots, though, instead of trading, they would rather call the bluff on like a Cooper Kupp, where no one's going to trade for him. Rams will cut him, and then they would go from there.
Well, yeah, because you got to think, too, Rams just came out of pocket to keep Matthew Stafford. Yeah. And while they had some of their strong chemistries and connections and that got them to postseason runs, we saw a bit of a disconnect in terms of teams being able to read that. They knew that was Stafford's go-to. Some things have shifted in terms of skill set for Cooper Kupp, but, I mean, you've overcome injuries. You've been the main workhorse for a Rams team. And you're getting up there. You're getting older year by year, so it's going to change your play. I think that he can go slot in somewhere and not ask for mega money, but he's always been known as a team guy. And you make a great point to mention that Vrabel says you want somebody to come in, be a part of the culture, be a team guy. I respect you, you respect me. And Kupp could be a fit for that. It sucks that Devontae Adams has some diva vibes around him because he did have 2 1,000+ yard seasons with McDaniels. You know, I think McDaniels knows the approach to kind of reach out to him, but they're going to have too many sidebar conversations, I think, to keep him in line and to keep his head into like a proper leadership role in what's turning out to be somewhat of a young Patriots team.
It's when everything, the priority is culture. And you realize just how void of leadership they were last year because Gerard Mayo did not have the resources or support to succeed. A guy like Devontae Adams makes sense. The connection to Josh McDaniels makes sense. I don't know how they left on terms. Obviously, Josh McDaniels fired. I don't know how Devontae Adams liked playing for him because players were smoking cigars in the locker room when Josh McDaniels was fired. But a guy like that prioritizes winning and left the Packers because they weren't going to pay him, demanded the trade, goes to Las Vegas, and then demands a trade as well to go to a winning culture. That's just not going to fit into the framework of Mike Vrabel.
Right.
And the same way reports came out, like Gerard Mayo was told it's going to be 3 years. This is what it is with Mike Vrabel as well. A Devontae Adams in the short term could help you win games, but in the long term, does he help you build up that culture? And that's why I go back to the guys like a Cooper Kupp that can make an impact. As crazy as it sounds, a Chris Godwin coming off the injury or a Darius Slayton.
You're not allowed to have him.
Yeah, well, it's the Bucks. And everyone's saying the Bucks are expected to retain him. And I know there are the reports like it was Matthew Berry saying you heard the Patriots are trying to trade for A.J. Brown. Again, like Matthew Berry's not as in tune with the guys. Like he's heard something at the combine. Coming from him, the guy knows fantasy football, but I just don't take his reports on that same level. Where the Patriots, with that number 4 overall pick, they know a lot is at their, within their reach of what they can do with the draft. They feel like they could control it at number 4, especially if a quarterback falls there. A.J. Brown, Mike Vrabel, there's a connection. Yes, it makes a ton of sense. Would you part with the number 4 overall pick for A.J. Brown? I don't think so because they have so many needs. Yeah. Trade back, you get more picks, then they have something to work with, and a lot can change as well. But there are the reports, and the A.J. Brown will always be circulated. It's going to be free agency for the Pats, but their priority, first and foremost, is going to be defensive line, offensive line, and then they're going to likely go from there.
Yeah, they have to. I mean, priority has to come over the fact that you have a bank account to work with and let alone not rushing the process. But what about Brandon Cooks? What do you think of him as a fit?
He's all right. It's just, he'd be a good wide, like if I have to think about it this much, it's good culture piece, about to be 32 years old, still productive, good run blocker. He teaches the right things. It's just if you are going to pay, and he could be a prove-it deal, like 1 year, $4 million deal. I want the priority has to be on the guys I think that are younger, like a Nick Westbrook-Akine who's 28, a guy like a Darius Slayton. Again, these aren't the sexiest names, but you got to fill out this wide receiver room that's 27, 28. And I think that can be short-term and long-term more beneficial. Brandon Cooks, I wouldn't hate. It's just if the priority and you are going to go in on wide receivers, someone that can be there to develop with Drake May over the next few years and help you win games and help teach you younger receivers. The fit for Brandon Cooks makes sense. It's just you got to sign guys, and they also need to draft a lot of receivers. And if you sign a Brandon Cooks, a Darius Slayton, Nick Westbrook-Akine, you're taking snaps away from a Jalen Noel or Jaden Higgins, guys that need those reps in an actual game to develop and get better.
Yeah.
And there's a point where you have too many cooks in the kitchen, per se, or too many guys just in that wide receiver room where it could hold people back.
Yeah, and having an oversaturated wide receiver room you think would be beneficial in terms of everyone learning off of one another and having that depth, because injuries are just kind of getting rampant and wild these days. But regardless, the rep point of view is actually tremendous. I hate to say it, Chris Godwin would be a tremendous fit. He's not allowed to come here.
Yeah, it's fine. I don't want him because of that ankle injury. I think he stays. It makes sense. He dislocated his ankle.
I get it. But we've seen guys come back from like gruesome
2 years later, though.
Gruesome situations.
Right, it took Tony Pollard a year to get back.
We're talking about a 3-year window. At least that's where my head's at.
Yes.
Okay.
But then he's going to be 29, so he'll be 30, 31 when he comes back, and that's a decline in the receivers.
He's got it. Just entertain the fact of like an OC that worked with Welker and Amendola, and then like you get this slot beast in Godwin. Again, he's not allowed to come here. Anyone who thinks that that's what I'm going for. But it would just be a fun hypothetical. You're staying in Tampa.
Want more on Chris Godwin? Want more on the Patriots? Check out the latest episode of Foxborough Rush, wherever you get your podcast. New episodes dropping every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That's Foxborough Rush. All things NFL, all things Patriots, wherever you get your podcasts. All right, we talked about it in the beginning. Let's get into it. Saquon Barkley agreed to a new 2-year, $41.2 million extension that makes him the highest paid running back in NFL history. He got $36 million fully guaranteed with this contract. And all it is they took his remaining 2 years, because he originally signed a 3-year deal with the Eagles. They said, hey, let's rip that up. You produced. Here's $20 million a year, and it's the same length of years too. Really smart move by the Eagles. And shout out Saquon, because all the talk was running backs don't get paid. He got $26 million at signing last year. He's getting $36 million guaranteed with this contract. So in 2 years, he made just over $55 million.
Well, and I love the fact that you opened the show mentioning the fact that like he's going to set a new tone here for running backs getting paid.
Yeah.
You join a roster, you become the guy that gets them into playoffs. Let alone helps them win a Super Bowl. Yeah, show him the money. But how about the $15 million in incentives?
Yeah.
Like that just tells you how this Eagles team is positioning themselves to go another gear and make another run, and they've got the tools to do so. The buy-in is there. The players are there for the most part. Even if anything changes in their wide receiving room, we saw a number of their wide receivers never healthy this season. So you're talking about a team that can function without, and like Barkley's only going to remain stout. I truly believe it.
Yeah, he's about to be 28 next season. So with this, they're going to have him his age 28, age 29 season, right before he turns 30 years old. And what a lot of franchises do with these signings too, Saquon comes in, bring in an outside free agent, and then when you get him paid, it's projecting to the other players in the league and the other agents, hey, if you maybe take a more team-friendly deal to get your player to Philly, and he produces here, we will reward him. And that's where they're playing the now, the future, and coming off a Super Bowl ring, they're setting themselves up for different types of success in the offseason. Because again, he was a guy that the Giants and the Eagles pretty much gave him the same numbers. He went for the same money pretty much to Philly, which was a much better situation. Offensive line, everything around him, the whole structure. He produced. They could have kept him. By doing this, they continue to control their cap space, reward players with cash, which is what they want because they have it. And again, it projects it to the rest of the league. We operate different from any other front office, and you guys need to take notice.
Yeah, well, now that level of respect is there. So just imagine, like, not that he has to elevate his play to any degree, but we talked about this heading into Super Bowl, the humility of a player like this. So to pay a guy who already has so much humility, is producing when it comes to pay, if they have to switch up the game plan and it not be heavily relied on him, he still finds ways to be a key asset in anything that needs to develop offensively. So, like, you also got a big leader in this, and you're just paying him on top of like what he has shown you he can be in this locker room. Like, he's going to be hyped to produce yet again.
Gosh, you put him right back behind that offensive line with those receivers, with that quarterback. This is a team that can repeat, and they're going to do anything it takes to do that. All right, moving on to the NBA. Kyrie Irving done for the season with a torn ACL. Actually, excuse me, sorry. Milton Williams sticking in the division. Cowboys agreed to an extension with Osa Odighizuwa, their defensive tackle. Big news for the Cowboys. Big news for him getting a contract. Basically giving him $20 million a year, giving a lot of guaranteed money. They basically paid him top 15 at the position. Cowboys were smart. They did this. They restructured CD Lamb's contract as well to open up $25 million in cap space. As much as I rip on Jerry Jones, it's the Will McClays, it's the Stephen Jones, the guys behind Jerry. They understand what they're doing with business. He was going to be the top defensive tackle in free agency, but staying with him, keeping him in-house, they got him for a really good deal. At 26 years old, too, this defense wasn't healthy. They need to get them healthy, and it helps out a lot.
Well, I think locking down a guy like this with this sort of contract, you have the ability to properly rebuild around him. And I say rebuild because there are some pieces that need to be pulled or changed around or to be more beneficial to him. So it's not a one-guy wrecking crew trying to get the job done, because that's where the Cowboys failed in a number of categories. When one went down, it was just like, what do we do from here? And you're talking about a team that was probably one of the best teams in the trenches on both sides of the ball, and they kind of lost that identity over the years. There was so much commotion around the signing for CeeDee Lamb, the signing for Dak Prescott. So to do this right, I think was important, but also we know that like they're going to come back with a vengeance because they can build accordingly around a player like this. 4
years, $80 million, $58 million guaranteed, $20 million guaranteed at signing. And this is a guy that was one of the best defensive tackles. How this affects the Patriots, it sets up the market for Milton Williams. They're both 26 years old, both right there in pressures and sack numbers. But with Odighizuwa staying in the building in Dallas, that would be a cheaper price, staying with the team. Milton Williams is going to hit the open market, going to get more offers, going to be a free agent. That'll drive up his price. But still, that's fine. Because if the Patriots give him a deal of 4 years, $88 million, so it's $22 a year, maybe just over $59 million fully guaranteed, for a defense that needs it, for a guy like Milton Williams is really young, that's a good play. That's a good contract that the Patriots can give out right there.
Yeah, a strong point about them not shopping around, because when you have desperate teams, the price does drive up and it drags things out tremendously. But I would agree with that. I mean, we weren't sure what much we'd see out of the Cowboys this year, but locking down your defense is going to help that much more.
Surprised. I saw this move. I'm like, that's a good job by Jerry Jones.
I know. It's hard to compliment the Cowboys.
It's again, I go with his guy, Will McClay, which is basically his right-hand man in that front office. I go with his son, Stephen Jones, who understands like the money part of it. Jerry, I mean, hey, but he's giving fully guaranteed money. That is cash. That's what you have to do.
Right.
The Cowboys are stepping up, creating cap space. And all of this they have to do for Dak, who has an $89 million cap hit, which is absurd. That's unheard of.
It's disgusting.
Yeah, they just have to continue to dial that back. The best they could do this season is break it down to just $57 million, which is still astronomical.
Yep.
but help themselves out, and it's also setting up Michael Parsons to get paid. All right, let's move on to Kyrie Irving. Unless we have to wait for the buzzer. No, we don't. I love that. Let's move on to Kyrie Irving. Sad news for him. Done for the season with a torn ACL. Was driving to the hoop last night, went down with contact, and you see this from Luka Doncic saying to his former teammate in Dallas, "You will come back stronger, mi hermano," is the caption there. The photo of Luka and Kyrie in Mavericks jerseys. But that's hard to see happen to Kyrie Irving. 33 years old, played 50 games this season, was healthy, but playing a lot of minutes. Man, this is just also karma, I feel like, too, for the Dallas Mavericks.
I literally was going to say that. I was literally going to say that. And I hate to be that person to make it a karmic situation.
Yeah,
but
because that's the expense of Kyrie.
Well, that's what had them. This is what had the Mavericks, like, puffing their chest at the situation. Yeah. We can move on from this player. He's lazy. He's this. He's that. Yeah, we've got Kyrie. We've got another strong two-way player. We've got pieces. We don't need him. And just the handling of that situation was no good. And then kind of basically like, the guy you were relying on to initially pull through for this team with the pieces that you brought in is now out of the mix. So how are you going to make that case, number one? Number two, you mentioned minutes being played. Well, how much did his minutes probably continue to go up, or how much more was he relied on when that move was made of Luka being pushed out?
Yeah, and over the course of he was playing his fourth most minutes a game, but that's also the most that he's played since like 2014, 15, like a much younger Kyrie. And over the last 6 weeks in the league, he was playing most minutes per game as well.
Yep.
But this is a guy that has had a fractured knee, broken hand, dealt with shoulder issues, has had multiple injuries, and has always been, question mark with his durability, but it's the style that he plays. He goes to the rim a lot. He attacks. He's not the biggest guy, so this is what's going to happen.
He has to be more aggressive.
The Mavericks traded Luka Doncic to bet on Kyrie Irving, who's 32 and has injury history, to bet on Anthony Davis, who's 31 and has injury history.
Yep.
And they got a half game out of AD, and they have Kyrie done for the season, along with Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively out indefinitely, along with Anthony Davis as well. It was a bad move, a dumb move by the Mavs from the beginning to trade Luka. Then this stuff happens, and that everything about that just gets amplified all the way through the roof.
Big time. Like, they thought they had pissed off fans just by the trade alone. Like,
they're raising ticket prices, you see. Next season, they're raising season ticket prices by 8%. And it was, quote, ongoing investments in the team.
They're drunk. People were already like leaving their season tickets at the door when the situation happened.
And investing in the team is giving Luka the Supermax.
Oh my gosh.
It's just
bad business. It's bad business.
They know how to run casinos. They don't, in like Singapore too, but just because you can run casinos doesn't mean you know how to run a team.
It's so different.
Bad ownership.
I wish people would just separate like casino situations, management situations from like other business structures.
Yep.
It's so different. But yeah, as soon as I saw this, I was like, this is karma, and fans are going to be even more pissed. And now, what does this put the Mavs? Because a lot of their movement and why they had to be so bullish about situations was because like, oh, we can make a run this year and we can push for next year.
It's the BS they were saying. They don't get better by trading Luka Doncic.
They somehow tried to paint that picture and now it just gets worse. Yeah. Right,
it's the delusional lying that they're putting out.
Yeah.
Also, Kyrie, after he injured his knee, though, it was a sprained knee, but he was crying, hit his free throws, and then left the game. Like, Kyrie's a hooper. He has a lot of question marks over the history of his career, but he is a hooper through
that dude.
And through. Hey, you want to hear all about Boston sports? Check out our daily sports podcast, this one. Boston has entered the chat. You can enter the conversation by tweeting at us using the hashtag NessenChat or email the chat at Nessen.com. Boston has entered the chat, available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, wherever else podcasts are found. And now we'll throw it to Ringside Review. Here's Jason and Athan with the latest from Monday Night Raw.
Welcome into another edition of Ringside Review, coming off the heels of the March 3rd edition of Monday Night Raw. I am Athan Hristodulu, and as always, joined alongside by Jason Ounpraseuth of Nessen.com, writer extraordinaire. Monday Night Raw started off with a bang. It ended off with a bang, a surprise bang at that, one that we both definitely did not see coming at all based off a conversation we had a couple of weeks ago, but one that I don't think really anyone saw coming. We got a lot to discuss. We're going to tie up some loose ends on the Cena heel turn. We're going to talk this CM Punk call out of Rock and Cena, and also just kind of where it seems Punk and Rollins are going. We'll, of course, get into the main event and the shocking title turn, but we'll start with just kind of some, I guess, like leftover stuff from the heel turn on Elimination Chamber and some reporting that came out here. The first thing is just the conspiracies regarding what The Rock has kind of been signaling. And Jason, I'll kind of let you take the lead on this one here, because I have been seeing the conversation about The Rock throwing up the 3 fingers at Bad Blood, now 2 fingers at Elimination Chamber. Sounds like maybe he's counting down to something and people are finally starting to catch on. I initially thought the 3 fingers at Bad Blood in hindsight was maybe him saying that he was going to heel turn Cena, and that was what he was alluding to, but the internet seems to be going a little bit further with it, and maybe I'm missing something.
Right, and then that seemed to be the case as well, but then at the Elimination Chamber, he threw up the 2 while doing the throat slit sign, which is an odd way to do that, and so it seems intentional from The Rock. And of course, the whole the 1 finger, we know that's Roman Reigns, the bloodline, but still, like, that seems kind of weird to throw that in there. And you would think that, hey, who's the third man, brother? Looking back to the NWO days and how, people comparing Cena's heel turn to The Rock's heel turn, but then, like, Travis Scott is the third man then.
Yeah.
So you would think that would be the case there. And so it's kind of an odd sort of thing. Maybe, again, like I said, maybe it could be a Roman Reigns tease. Maybe not WrestleMania. Probably in the future, perhaps. If Cena does win the title, you would think, hey, doing that sort of inverse of Roman Reigns as the babyface and Cena as the heel, sort of calling back to that little feud that they had like a couple summers ago. Probably if they do that, assuming Cena does win the title at Mania.
You know what? That's actually a great point and not something that was on my radar until you just said that. But the one thing that has always kind of stood true in my eyes was that the Roman Reigns, John Cena torch passing, if you even want to call it that, at No Mercy a handful of years ago, felt so rushed, so just out of the blue. It didn't have enough setup, and typical to the tail end of Vince McMahon era fashion, it fits the bill for what was going on at that time. So if we do get an inverse on that, I'm actually gaming with just how over Roman Reigns is as a face, even though he's still trying to be like the tribal chief, and that with it comes a sort of heel persona, but everyone loves him to death at this point because of how good he was as a heel, which is the natural curve of how that arc usually goes. That's actually something I'd be on board for. So if that's the direction they go with, I'm game for that. The other thing we need to get into really fast, and this is not something that's surprising me, because when I saw the slap coming from different camera angles from Travis Scott, I thought, wow, he really laid that into Cody. And I was like, and that was so close to his ear. And I remember as Cody was leaving the ring after Elimination Chamber, his face was already purple and swelling on that same side of his head. And I was like, and I thought, okay, wow, they really let him get clipped with the championship when Cena hit him. That was what I was thinking, because I feel like the TV camera that we got from Travis Scott hitting Rhodes wasn't a very good angle of it. And at this point, I'm wondering, was that scripted? Was that not scripted? Because now Cody Rhodes, and this is coming from Dave Meltzer too, I don't know how you feel about him. We haven't talked about him much on here, Jason. I'm not his biggest fan, so take this with, as much salt as you're willing to, but reportedly suffering a busted eardrum and a black eye after getting hit by Travis Scott after the Elimination Chamber match. That's poor reporting on Bleacher Report's end here. Everyone's getting shots today. But what do you think? Is this gonna is this gonna create an issue at all in any shape or form between Travis Scott and WWE? Because that's if it's a ruptured eardrum or something like that, this close to Mania, that's not ideal.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm personally not much of a, I guess, Meltzer hater. Not really saying that you are. Maybe hater's a strong word, but
I might consider myself a hater.
Sure, but I think, as we saw with the Bleacher Report thing, I think the issue of Meltzer is just the aggregation of Meltzer rather than just his words himself. Looking at the original report, he simply said that Cody had a busted eardrum and a black eye. He didn't really say it was from Travis Scott. It could have come from that title shot as well. But I think people are, since Travis Scott has become this linchpin, this lightning rod of the criticism of this angle, I think people are kind of just pointing the fingers together of like, hey, Travis Scott, this guy doesn't belong in this angle, and look at him now. He's ruining this angle now. And so I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm not the biggest Travis Scott fan. I probably couldn't name a song to you, Athan. That's probably just me getting older. But definitely this isn't ideal. But I do want to point out that Cody is kind of a madman. I wouldn't be surprised if he told Travis Scott, hey, lay it in on me, make this look real as possible, because this is what I want. This is the same guy who wrestled with a torn pec at Hell in a Cell. This is the same guy that set himself on fire in AEW. And so Cody is as old school as it comes. And so I would not be surprised if he's elated by this, even if this, take it with a grain of salt and all that. Maybe it isn't that bad, his eardrum, and maybe he doesn't have a black eye. I wouldn't be surprised if Cody has bought into the story and gave himself a black eye and just put up some more makeup on SmackDown and made it look like a lot more than it actually is, especially to build up this angle even further.
Yeah, I mean, we've been watching Cody get absolutely whooped over the last couple of years and lead ups to WrestleMania now. It seems like he is more than willing to take a beating. So if that's the case, then so be it. I'll be interested to see how that actually ends up looking, hopefully on SmackDown, because we didn't get anything regarding that. And it looks like SmackDown's going to get this build up, and I like that because I'm a big brand split guy, and I like when the brand split makes sense. So my hope is that we have this Cena Rhodes build on SmackDown. That way it doesn't completely overshadow a lackluster Gunther J build that I am just a full-fledged hater of at this point now and is going absolutely nowhere in my eyes. But we can talk about that another day. What we need to get into, though, for the actual show of Monday Night Raw, CM Punk calling out The Rock, John Cena, and basically anyone was able to get it at that point. And if Seth Rollins didn't come out and interrupt him, I'm sure there were probably other names he was willing to fire off. But I've got to say that he hasn't lost a step. I love his mic work. He's so fiery, so honest, so more than willing to say anything. The fact that he kind of recalled something that he said in his initial title reign from way back in that 2013 era of like capturing Vince McMahon's imaginary brass rings, essentially alluding to the titles being fake and not actually having a meaning, to being able to call it a fake title again in 2025, I thought was like great callback work on his part. We're getting the triple threat. Is that where we're going? The triple threat?
It seems that way. I mean, I would not be surprised if that did happen. I mean, it seems odd to not have a Roman Reigns at a WrestleMania. Like I said, maybe there's something involving with The Rock and Cena, but it seems like an after Mania plan. And so, like you said, Punk, he can sell any kind of story he wants, but I really don't want to see Seth Rollins and CM Punk go one-on-one. I just have no interest in the match. Personally, myself, I think Seth Rollins doesn't really do it as a singles competitor, especially nowadays. I think, they keep trying to find something interesting for him, but I was not really buying it as much as I did, I guess when he was more fresher and still newer to the scene. Just him being a veteran just doesn't really buy it for me. But yeah, I mean, just a fantastic start to Raw and just really just laying it in. And I did like the funny line that, I'm not the one carrying around a fake title. And then just people who have watched AEW, he did kind of carry around a fake title. He carried around a fake championship and put an X on it. And so that's kind of a funny, ironic twist there. Yeah,
I will say that the work that Punk does on the mic it's levels above, and he makes me, even you could see it from the crowd. I mean, they were so behind everything that he was saying. They were absolutely cheering it on him. Like, you look at the Netflix tweet there that we have pulled up with Netflix telling CM Punk to chill because he's dropping S-bombs everywhere. It was a spectacle, and if you need somebody to kick off Monday Night Raw, it's going to be CM Punk. But on the topic of him, as I just alluded to a second ago, it sounds like we're getting this triple threat here because we're getting CM Punk, we're getting Seth Rollins in a steel cage next week. Seth Rollins, kind of in a promo, alluded to Roman Reigns and what he did to him, taking him out, and basically how he kind of forced Adam Pearce's hand into booking this steel cage match next week. He's willing to do to Punk what he did to Reigns to make sure they both can't get to WrestleMania. That comment can't fly on Roman Reigns' end. I am assuming at this point we're getting Roman coming back next week to set up, or at least tease, the triple threat, where then it gets, it'll get official a week or two out from the actual event itself. But that seems like the way we're going. We've talked about this a few times. With the way that they're kind of starting to build it right now, it looks like Rollins is kind of the antagonist and everything. He's creating problems with everyone. So now he's going to have two big names coming after him, gunning for him at Mania. Are we cool with this? I'm still not big on the triple threat. I don't want it, but I do kind of like the angle that they're taking it, and I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of just fine with it in terms of just the star power, but yeah, like you said, like, it's really just like, what's the story? It's just like Rollins is just the antagonist, and Roman, I guess, is childish in a way of like, hey, you can't say that about me. And then, I guess Punk is also just wanting to get his hands on everybody, and there's still that looming thread of the Paul Heyman favor that he has. And so I guess maybe will that play a part of this storyline? Or I guess, I don't know, someone will take the fall perhaps, or maybe he needs Roman Reigns to help out against Seth Rollins. I mean, who knows? But that's still, I guess there is a case to be made that there's maybe some threads to this story.
My prediction for that favor from Paul Heyman on CM Punk's end, if I had to guess, he's going to tell Paul Heyman during this triple threat at WrestleMania, you're in my corner. That would be such a slap in the face to Roman, but also put Heyman in such an impossible situation, and it would create a lot. It would make me honestly far more invested in the story, because then it really solidifies an angle between Punk and Roman that isn't necessarily there. Whereas Roman and Seth, they have an angle. CM Punk and Seth, they have an angle. Like, we need a way to kind of connect the triangle here to make this triple threat make sense, because for me, it's like, if a contendership isn't on the line or a championship isn't on the line, like, what are we doing a triple threat for kind of deal? So that's, in my eyes, like the missing bridge that we will have to cross between now and WrestleMania, but that's what I'm really pulling for. The last thing we got to talk, because you and I both completely wrote this off a few weeks ago when it was announced, Iyo Sky capturing the Women's World Championship, defeating Rhea Ripley in very shocking fashion, I think, to everybody and then some. In my eyes, and I'm curious to hear what you say about this one, Jason, I almost feel like Triple H might be trying to overcompensate a little bit too much now with the unpredictability and does it feel like it's a road to WrestleMania now thing that he mentioned at the end of Elimination Chamber. Was this always in the cards? Was everyone missing something? Is Triple H overcompensating? Like, what are we doing here? How did we get to this? Because I'm not sure how I feel about Rhea losing this close out to Mania. And the assumption, I guess, now is either Rhea is somehow on the outs or we're going to get a triple threat. And I don't really see a path for Rhea not being involved.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it might have been in the cards, I think, because after that CM Punk fiery promo to start the show, the rest of Raw was just kind of ho-hum. Like, it's just like, they're sure, like, you know, there's the title matches and stuff, but they were just fine. They weren't really standout matches at all. And so I think, you know, this was a perfect way to get more buzz for WWE, especially after the big Cena heel turn, gain more eyes on the product. Hey, we're starting out with CM Punk, and then we're bookending the show with another shocker with a match finish here. And so maybe it was in the plans. But yeah, it does kind of feel like, you know, we sort of mentioned before in our Elimination Chamber, reaction, how, WWE, they kind of like Iyo Sky, but at the same time, they kind of don't also. It kind of feels like they are waiting for a chance to rug pull her any chance they get. And I feel like that's what's going to happen at Mania. But this is step one of giving her the title win, but then probably a short title reign for her, probably.
Yeah, and that's one of those things where, and you can see the tweet on here right now, deserved not given, congrats to Iyo Sky from Triple H. I feel like he really likes Iyo Sky, and maybe in years past, upper management wasn't necessarily behind her as much as Triple H was, and maybe this is her actual opportunity to be given a real run like this. It's in such a big situation too, and I know Iyo Sky is very talented. Like, don't get me wrong here, she's just not, like, I guess, my cup of tea as a women champion. I'm far more on like the Rhea Ripley's end. Like, I love the dominating character that she has going on, and even they've made her look a lot more vulnerable. Like, if you saw the post interview she had with Jackie Redmond after the show and off the air, like, even that was just kind of like way off the character that we're used to seeing, where she's like acknowledging she's not an unstoppable force, and I'm not game for that. I want my Rhea Ripley, taking it to everybody, anyone can get it type. But my concern now is this goes one of two ways. Like I said, it's either going to be a one-on-one with Iyo and Bianca, and somehow this is going to be some sort of like lesson learning situation for Rhea, or it's a triple threat. And can you risk the strength of Bianca, who, don't get me wrong, I can't really remember the last time I've watched her get pinned clean, and she's not one that I feel gets pinned clean very often. You have Rhea Ripley, who obviously as recently as now yesterday did get pinned clean, but those are two people that don't typically get pinned in situations, and are we now setting up for, we can have one of those two win without the other taking a loss, and it's going to be Iyo Sky now?
It definitely feels that way, and this is probably one of the problems of Paul Levesque, Triple H as a booker, where he is maybe giving a middle finger to those who are questioning his methods, and taking shots at people who are like, oh, is this the finally built the build to WrestleMania? But then he does things like this, like you said, Rhea Ripley is supposed to be this dominating character, but then they make her look like an idiot. And then for Bianca Belair, this is finally her chance to have a dominant singles run, but then it's getting cut off with probably a triple threat, as you alluded to. And this feels like the perfect opportunity for one of them to pin Iyo, so that, Iyo will get her moment for the Netflix win, but then probably everyone will forget her losing the title at Mania. And so it's just weird having your cake and eat it too kind of booking.
Oh,
it feels
definitely. I absolutely agree. And I'm curious to see where it goes. This is not a situation I thought we'd be in, but here we are. That's all we got time for, though, for today's edition of Ringside Review. I'm Athan Hristodulu, Jason Ounpraseuth alongside me. As always, if you made it to the end, greatly appreciate it. We'll see you all next week after another edition of Monday Night Raw.
Shout out Jason and Athan for that. Cannot believe still that Travis Scott legitimately injured Cody Rhodes by smacking him in the side of the head.
You're not supposed to let anybody in the rink. They broke all their top rules. Well, yeah, just because Bad Bunny's getting in on the mix. He takes that seriously.
To hit without hitting him.
Right. He takes that seriously. I'm sure he actually took the time to show up to one of the gyms and make sure he was doing that right, because even though wrestling is I don't want to call it
scripted.
fake. Yeah, scripted.
It's fake.
Animated and stuff. They have to train for hours how to sell these moves.
Yeah.
And Cody Rhodes being knocked out because of Travis Scott didn't have rink training. Look at me, hockey brain. Ring
training.
Training. Thank you. Is just wild. So, how bad do you think Travis Scott feels at all?
Oh, I mean, he has to feel terrible because also he definitely wants to keep going back. And Cody Rhodes is a good guy too. And someone that you're injuring in this. If it was John Cena or The Rock, people would be celebrating it. Or Hulk Hogan. But it turned out it was Cody Rhodes. She's Kasey Hudson. I'm George Balekji. This is Boston has ended the chat. Appreciate you guys making us a part of your day. Catch new episodes every day, Monday through Friday, wherever you get your podcasts, and new episodes of Foxborough Rush every Monday, Wednesday, Friday as well. For GB, KH, we'll see you guys next time. Have a good one.